Hello Zenith women and welcome to the channel. Sometimes the world doesn't understand the child who sees through its illusions. Some children are built differently. They're not the ones causing a scene in the playground, seeking attention, or playing follow the leader. These are the kids who sit back, watch, and question everything. Kids who seem to carry the weight of 100 unspoken truths. They're the old souls, the outliers, the ones who just never quite fit into the cookie-cutter roles set up for them. And among these unique children, Sigma females stand in a category all their own. Being a Sigma female as a child is like playing a game where everyone else knows the rules, but you're handed a completely different playbook. You don't just follow, you question. You don't just play along, you dissect. From teachers mistaking your thoughtful silence for indifference to adults expecting you to act more mature, the world around you doesn't quite know what to make of you. Let's dive into the 10 harsh truths of a Sigma female's childhood, stories not for the faint-hearted, and definitely not your average "I was a quirky kid" narrative. Brace yourself, because by the end you might just see why these young Sigmas don't grow up to fit into the world. They grow up to reshape it. Number 1. Adult expectations are forced on them. For a Sigma female, childhood often means carrying expectations far beyond her years. Adults around her see qualities like her quiet maturity, her independent nature, and her deep, thoughtful way of looking at the world, and they unconsciously decide she can handle more. She might be praised for being wise beyond her years or so responsible. But what these compliments actually mean is that in some way, she's expected to act more like an adult than a child. People expect her to understand complex emotions and situations well before her peers do. When other kids get a pass for being just kids, she's often held to a different standard, one that expects her to pick up on unspoken rules and understand adult problems. While her friends get to run free and stumble through life without much scrutiny, she learns early on that mistakes aren't quite as forgivable for her. She's seen as someone who should know better, even though she's just as young and inexperienced as everyone else around her. This forced maturity creates a sense of pressure. She knows people expect her to behave a certain way, and this makes her internalize a lot more than any child should. It's not just about acting good or mature. She begins to feel responsible for things that go beyond her control, sometimes even taking on the emotional burdens of others. Her parents might lean on her for support or treat her as a confidant. Teachers might assume she'll take care of things on her own. Friends might look to her for guidance. She quickly learns to navigate adult expectations and keep her own needs hidden, mastering a quiet resilience that will follow her throughout her life. This strength is forged early, but it comes at the price of a truly carefree childhood. Number 2, they often feel like outsiders. Growing up as a Sigma female means feeling like an outsider even in familiar places. While other kids naturally connect, follow trends, and bond over shared interests, a Sigma girl often stands just outside the circle. It's not that she doesn't want friends or connection, it's more that she sees things differently. She notices subtle details others miss, picks up on undercurrents in conversations, and has a strong inner world that feels miles away from what most of her peers can relate to. There's a sense of distance, like she's watching the world through a one-way mirror. This feeling of being an outsider goes beyond simple shyness or introversion. She's not just quiet or reserved, she's fundamentally on a different wavelength. Conversations that excite her classmates might bore her because she craves depth and honesty that others her age might not yet grasp. She finds it hard to pretend to care about surface-level chatter or to fit into the typical mold of what a normal kid should be. She isn't interested in following trends for the sake of fitting in or pretending to be someone she's not, just to blend with the crowd. As she grows, this sense of separateness can feel isolating. She watches as her classmates bond over things that don't resonate with her, feeling both close to people yet somehow worlds apart. She's often misinterpreted, sometimes even labeled as aloof or indifferent, when in reality she's just deeply different. Her mind operates in layers, processing emotions and interactions in ways that others don't see. She becomes skilled at hiding how much she feels like an outsider, accepting this loneliness as part of her identity. And while it shapes her strength and independence, It also means she often walks a path alone, aware that few will truly understand her. Number 3. Why becomes their burden. For a Sigma female, why is the question that defines her childhood, yet it's also the one that becomes her burden. From a young age, she has a natural curiosity that goes beyond simply wanting to know how things work. She's driven by a need to understand the deeper meaning behind things, to know the reasons and motives behind people's actions, and to make sense of the world on her own terms. But this curiosity isn't always welcomed, especially by adults and authority figures who find her relentless questioning challenging or even unsettling. When she asks why, it's not to be difficult or rebellious. It's because she genuinely wants answers that go beyond surface-level explanations. She's not satisfied with being told just because or that's the way it is. She wants to know why rules are made the way they are, why people believe in certain things, why society is structured as it is. Her questions often make others uncomfortable because they force people to think about things they might have accepted without question. To some, her questions feel like a challenge to their authority, and she's often met with dismissive answers or outright frustration. Over time, this response can weigh on her. She learns that her natural way of thinking and questioning isn't something everyone else wants to hear. Rather than being encouraged to explore her thoughts, she's made to feel as though her curiosity is a problem, a nuisance that disrupts the status quo. But instead of silencing her questions, this reaction only drives her further inward. She starts to question things silently, developing a private world of thought that no one else can reach. It's a lonely path carrying the why by herself, but it's also the beginning of her independence, of her need to find her own truths, even if the world isn't ready to give her answers. Number 4. Teachers misinterpret them as disengaged. In school, a Sigma female's thoughtful, quiet nature is often mistaken for disengagement. Teachers tend to see kids who speak up, participate eagerly, and follow the script as the good students. But a Sigma girl doesn't fit that mold. She's the one sitting in the back, eyes focused, listening but rarely speaking. Her mind is fully engaged, processing every word and concept deeply, but to the outside world her silence reads as boredom or disinterest. Teachers sometimes assume she's not paying attention, or that she doesn't care about what's being taught, when in reality, she's simply absorbing it in her own way. She doesn't need to raise her hand for every question or be the loudest in the room to understand what's going on. But this approach often works against her. Teachers misinterpret her quietness as a lack of motivation or even defiance, and she gets overlooked or underestimated as a result. Instead of recognizing her quiet intensity, they might label her as uninterested or withdrawn. This misinterpretation affects her academic experience. While other students are praised for being outspoken, she's left feeling invisible, as if her efforts and intelligence go unnoticed. It's frustrating, and over time she learns that she won't be rewarded for simply being herself. She might even start to doubt her own abilities, wondering if something is wrong with her for not being more like her louder, more extroverted classmates. This constant misreading of her personality by those in authority teaches her to rely even more on herself. She realizes that she can't depend on others to see her strengths or potential. Instead, she learns to trust her own perception and intelligence, becoming more self-reliant and introspective. Though it's a lonely journey, this experience only deepens her independence, shaping her into someone who doesn't need validation to know her own worth. Number 5. Developing skepticism of others' motives. Growing up, a Sigma female starts to develop a keen sense of skepticism about people's motives. It's not that she wants to distrust others. Rather, her natural insight allows her to see the layers and intentions behind people's words and actions. From a young age, she notices things others overlook, how a compliment can have a hidden agenda, how a friend's kindness can sometimes mask competition, or how authority figures might use their position to control more than to guide. While other children might take things at face value, she's always reading between the lines, sensing what isn't being said. This heightened awareness is both a gift and a burden. She quickly realizes that not everyone has pure intentions, and this changes how she interacts with others. It's harder for her to fully trust, even when she wants to, because she's aware of how easily people can manipulate, lie, or put on a facade. When a teacher favors certain students or when a friend says one thing and does another, she picks up on these inconsistencies immediately. She learns early on that the world isn't always straightforward and that people can be unpredictable in ways that aren't always harmless. This skepticism can make her seem guarded or even distant, as she finds it hard to let her guard down. She's careful about who she lets in, aware that not everyone will have her best interests at heart. While other children might form friendships without a second thought, she's slower to trust, needing to see consistency and authenticity before she fully opens up. This instinct to question others' motives becomes a core part of who she is, shaping her interactions and making her fiercely independent. It's a lonely road at times, but it's one that ultimately makes her resilient, able to see through deception and rely on her own judgment above all. Number 6, emotionally intense friendships. For a Sigma female, friendships as a child are often intense and complicated. She doesn't make friends easily, but when she does, she invests deeply. There's no such thing as a casual friendship for her. She gives her all, connecting on levels that most kids her age may not even understand. Her loyalty is fierce, and she expects the same from the few people she chooses to let in. But this depth can be overwhelming for others, and it doesn't always end well. Because she values authenticity so strongly, she can quickly see through superficiality. She's drawn to friends who seem genuine and dislikes the forced interactions many kids feel comfortable with. Her friendships tend to be intense, sometimes too intense. She doesn't just hang out or share surface-level interests. She opens up fully and expects the same in return. But not everyone is ready for this level of honesty and connection. Some friends may feel uncomfortable with her depth, sensing that she's looking for a real bond, not just a playground buddy. Over time, she learns that many people simply aren't capable of matching her emotional investment. This can lead to heartbreak and a sense of betrayal. The friends she trusted most might drift away or reveal they were never as committed as she was. Each time this happens, she builds a thicker emotional wall. She becomes cautious, more reserved with each new person, and begins to feel that maybe this depth of connection isn't something others can handle. But even as she pulls back, she never stops wanting that true bond. By the time she's older, she has learned to keep her circle small, valuing quality over quantity. She may have fewer friendships, but those she holds on to are meaningful, built on respect and mutual understanding. This selective nature stays with her, making her relationships rare but profoundly valuable. Number 7. Constant internal pressure for self-improvement. From a young age, a Sigma female feels a constant internal pressure to be better, as if she's competing against her own potential. This drive isn't about impressing others, it comes from within, a quiet but relentless need to evolve and grow. While most kids might be content with simply doing well enough, she feels a deeper urge to push herself, to reach for something more, even when she's not sure what that more is. She notices her own imperfections acutely and holds herself to standards that go far beyond what anyone else would expect from her. This pressure can make her childhood intense, sometimes even exhausting. She sets goals and challenges for herself that few understand, constantly analyzing her actions and questioning her choices. Whether it's mastering a new skill, getting better grades, or simply understanding herself more deeply, she's driven by an unshakable need to improve. But instead of celebrating her progress, she often zeroes in on her perceived shortcomings, feeling like there's always something she could have done better. This constant self-assessment can be isolating. Others might see her as overly serious or too focused, and she may struggle to relate to kids who don't have that same inner drive. At times, she can be hard on herself, feeling frustrated when she doesn't meet her own high expectations. She might feel like she's carrying an invisible weight, a pressure that no one else can understand or relieve. This drive shapes her, turning her into someone who is resilient, disciplined, and self-reliant. But it also means she rarely feels satisfied with herself. As she grows older, she learns to channel this pressure into personal growth rather than self-criticism, understanding that her desire to improve is both a strength and a challenge. She comes to realize that this inner drive is part of what makes her unique, setting her apart and preparing her for a life guided by purpose and depth. Number 8. Their ideas are often overlooked. As a child, a Sigma female often finds her ideas overlooked, dismissed as though they lack the weight of someone older or more outspoken. She might sit in class, listening intently, coming up with thoughts and perspectives that feel important to share. But when she does speak, her words are often met with a quick nod, a polite smile, or sometimes ignored altogether. It's as if her ideas don't carry the same value as others. And over time, she starts to realize that her voice might not be welcomed in every space. This disregard for her ideas affects her deeply, shaping how she sees herself and how she learns to navigate the world. She knows her thoughts are unique. She has an intuition and clarity that most kids don't yet have. But instead of being encouraged to express herself, she's often subtly told to hold back. Authority figures, whether teachers, coaches, or sometimes even parents, may brush off her input, often preferring ideas that fit neatly into the mainstream. The frustration builds as she watches other, sometimes less thoughtful suggestions taken more seriously, while her insights are set aside. Rather than give up, however, she learns to guard her ideas, valuing them privately instead of waiting for others to appreciate them. She becomes her own sounding board, developing an inner world rich with thoughts and opinions that she shares only with those who truly listen. This quiet refusal to conform turns her into an observer, someone who watches, analyzes, and only speaks when it truly matters to her. As she grows, this practice of holding on to her ideas for herself strengthens her independence. She realizes that she doesn't need external validation to know her ideas are valuable. She trusts her own judgment, becoming someone who isn't easily swayed by outside voices. This early experience of being overlooked becomes the foundation for her self-reliance and quiet confidence. Number 9. Unusual interests are alienating. For a Sigma female, having unusual interests can be a double-edged sword. From an early age, she tends to gravitate toward hobbies, subjects, or activities that set her apart from her peers. While other kids might be engrossed in mainstream trends or popular games, she finds joy in the obscure and the unconventional, be it an interest in ancient history, a love for niche literature, or a fascination with the intricacies of nature. This unique perspective shapes her identity but also alienates her from her peers, who often can't relate to her passions. As she explores these interests, she frequently encounters bewildered looks or dismissive comments from those around her. This response can feel isolating, as if her enthusiasm for what she loves is a flaw rather than a strength. While others bond over common interests, she often feels like an outsider, trying to share her excitement with friends who simply don't get it. The pressure to conform to group norms can be intense, and sometimes she feels she has to suppress her passions to fit in. Yet this sense of alienation is also liberating. It teaches her to embrace her individuality and value her unique voice. While others may chase fleeting trends, she develops a deeper appreciation for her interests, recognizing that they are an integral part of who she is. This self-acceptance allows her to cultivate a sense of confidence, even when she feels alone. Over time, she learns that her unusual interests can lead to rich experiences and connections with like-minded individuals. Whether it's finding an online community or bonding with a small group of fellow enthusiasts, she discovers that being different is not a weakness, but a strength. This journey of self-discovery helps her understand that her passions define her, guiding her toward a life that celebrates her uniqueness rather than shies away from it. Number 10. Romanticizing solitude from an early age. From an early age, a Sigma female often romanticizes solitude, viewing it as a sanctuary rather than something to be feared. While many children crave constant interaction and the companionship of friends, she finds comfort in her own company. This affinity for solitude isn't born out of loneliness. Instead, it's a conscious choice that allows her to recharge, reflect, and explore her own thoughts without the noise of others' expectations. Where other kids might feel restless alone, she finds a deep sense of peace, diving into books, art, or nature, crafting a rich inner world that's entirely her own. As she navigates her childhood, this relationship with solitude shapes her identity. She learns to appreciate the quiet moments, using them to cultivate creativity and self-awareness. The hours spent alone become opportunities for exploration. She writes stories, sketches ideas, or simply contemplates the world around her. This self-directed time fosters an independence that many of her peers lack, allowing her to develop a strong sense of self. However, this preference for solitude can also be misunderstood. Others may perceive her as withdrawn or antisocial, not realizing that she thrives when left to her own devices. While kids around her chase social validation, she finds fulfillment in pursuing her passions, sometimes leading to feelings of alienation. Yet rather than conforming to societal expectations of constant social interaction, she embraces her uniqueness, knowing that her true self is found in these moments of introspection. As she grows, this romantic view of solitude becomes a cornerstone of her strength. It teaches her resilience, showing her that she doesn't need the approval of others to feel fulfilled. This understanding shapes her future, empowering her to embrace independence, cultivate meaningful relationships when they align, and stand firm in her identity. Ultimately, her relationship with solitude becomes a vital part of her journey, one that she cherishes and defends throughout her life. In exploring the intricate landscape of a Sigma female's childhood, it becomes clear that her experiences are defined by a unique blend of strength and sensitivity. She navigates a world that often misunderstands her, yet she emerges resilient and self-aware. Each challenge, be it the weight of adult expectations, feelings of isolation, or the struggle for recognition, shapes her into a woman who values her individuality and inner voice. While society may push her to conform, she learns to embrace her peculiar interests and finds power in her solitude, crafting a rich tapestry of self-discovery that few can truly appreciate. As she transitions into adulthood, the traits cultivated during her formative years become her greatest assets. The skepticism she develops regarding others' motives sharpens her instincts, guiding her toward authentic connections. Her emotionally intense friendships foster loyalty and depth, while her relentless pursuit of self-improvement ensures that she continues to evolve in a world that often remains stagnant. The burdens of her youth transform into the cornerstones of her character, propelling her forward with confidence and purpose. Ultimately, the Sigma female's journey is not just about overcoming adversity, it's about embracing the very aspects of her identity that make her extraordinary. In a society that often undervalues quiet strength and individuality, she stands as a testament to the power of self-acceptance and the richness of an inner life. As she fully realizes her potential, she not only carves out her path but also inspires others to do the same. Her story reminds us all that true fulfillment lies in honoring one's uniqueness, transforming solitude into a powerful ally, and navigating life with the courage to be unapologetically oneself. If you found value in understanding the extraordinary journey of Sigma females, we invite you to join our community. Subscribing to our channel not only keeps you connected with insightful discussions and content that challenges the status quo, but it also empowers you to explore deeper truths about individuality, strength, and personal growth. Each video is crafted to provoke thought, inspire self-reflection, and foster a space where unique voices are celebrated. Don't miss out on the opportunity to be part of this journey. Hit that subscribe button and let's continue to delve into what makes us exceptional together. Your voice matters, and together we can create a community that champions authenticity and courage. Thanks for watching, and bye.